All right. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us in this new year, the 7 January 2026 Werewolf Technical Steering Committee meeting. I have a relatively short agenda because I want to focus on getting the release out that I at least, I said, we're going to have it by the end of the year. It's not there, but you know what? We're set up really close. I put this pull request under the wrong issue. It's here. So I'd like to look at the three issues that are in the release milestone and see if people have any questions about those or issue concerns with them. I've got PRs in place for two of them, and then I wanted to ask questions about the third that doesn't have a PR with it yet. And then, Tim, I know that you have at least one PR for Werewolf Node images. I thought maybe we could break with my tradition and actually go over there and just merge some PRs if we think they look good in the context of the meeting. But aside, oh, this is old. I think that there won't be controversy. I'm expecting to do TSC chair for the next year, given the voting that has come in. If you haven't voted and you disagree with that, feel free to do so. Um, but yeah, anything else that we should discuss today in this meeting aside from these two things? All right. Well, we have. I'll just show from this perspective first. We have just so we see where we are. This is our release milestone. And oh, one of these. Oh, maybe Christian, did you already merge my other PR?
Yeah. Just
Excellent.
a minute ago. That's
So
7 minutes.
I'll just talk about it so people are aware of what happened. So the issue here is that when so we run ignition in two different places. One is during boot, if you're for um, to support doing provision to disk, you need to be able to provision the disk before it writes the image. So Dracket can do that. And if you have provisioned to disk, now you have a lock on that disk and you can't reformat that disk anymore. And so that was causing the second attempt to run ignition to fail, which was then causing the mounts for the file systems to fail also because they depended on it. So what this PR does, among some other kind of smaller reorg stuff, just because I was always confused by it, um, is the Dracket run of Ignition drops a Sentinel file in slash werewolf that the later system D initiated version uh, of Ignition notices and says, "Oh, I see this has already been run. I don't need to run again." And so this has been tested by having a provision to disk environment that also provisions a scratch file system, and that did not mount before correctly, and it does now. Christian, did you have any other comments or thoughts? I know there was one point of confusion at one point, but since you
Yeah,
merged
yeah,
it, I
that
take
was
it that
just that you kind of how the testing worked.
yeah.
Um, that was the only thing we should keep in our mind is that you are now also transferring the run directory to the new rootfs. Um, could be in some edge cases introduce some errors.
Well, it's not the slash run directory. It's not the one. It's not the systems run directory. It's one that lives inside of slash werewolf.
Ah, okay, that's okay. Then I missed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I originally thought that Dracket was transferring files from slash run, so my first attempt was to just write it into slash run, and it didn't come across. So it writes it to so in order to get the ignition configuration in the first place, we unpack the system overlay into Dracket in slash temp slash wwinit. And so it creates a run directory there. And then the Dracket module looks to see if there is a run directory there and transfers it to slash werewolf slash run. And then that is where the system D version of Ignition looks. So the second thing in here is that I'll skip ahead to cannot unset a subnet mask. And so this is that historically the way you have unset a value is to set it to a special sentinel value like all caps unset or undef. And then later we added type checking um, for command line arguments. So it these came into conflict because undef is not a valid IP address or netmask. So you can't set the IP address or netmask to undef, which makes it so that you cannot unset them. So the way that we discussed implementing this, and I will see if I can get, I actually happen to have this in an environment here. We discussed implementing this as a new subcommand. Right, it's actually a pair of subcommands, actually. Uh, so now there is a node unset, and it has all the same arguments as node set, or the ones that make sense. And similarly, a profile unset. And then instead of accepting a value, these just are Booleans. And when you say unset them, it unsets it. So I can say, oh, I had this, but okay, I'll just do it. Uh, We'll do both of them. So here I have a node that has these two values set, and I can now say unset IP header, but I need to say the node. And you can unset any value that's in there. It doesn't
Uh,
remove any of the previous existing undef functionality. Something that I meant to add but is not in there right now is a deprecation warning for that, but maybe I'll put that to this group of whether we should have a deprecation warning or just expect that the undef syntax will continue to work.
so what happens if you unset a net name, or is it simply not possible?
Netname doesn't get unset. It's as before, netname is just used to specify which network you're unsetting things from. So if I set uh, net name here uh, to other. So now I have a default here and an other. And then if I say unset,
And if you just use is it as net name other, does it delete then the network completely, or
no, it doesn't see that as a field that's being unset.
wouldn't that be the logical?
I suppose it could do that. It does not right now. You would do that by unsetting uh, all of the attributes of it. And then
No, then it would be still there.
no, it actually special cases that. It sees that you've removed all the attributes of a net name and removes the net name also.
Yeah, but that's that. I would like it more if you'd say, okay, you could, and then this would be a clear way. Okay, you unset a net name or you unset a partition or things like this. Because we don't have really, it's ugly how it's done right now that I think there's a netdel
Say
comment
a
for
net del.
set. Oh, there is part del and netdel.
Yeah, there is a net del.
It would be nicer if we then could then remove this unsetting. We could we
Just unset the network and all the values associated just disappear.
yeah. No, then the network disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We just need to clean up all the associated values.
Yeah.
Basically anything in here that has a del.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's part, and
And
is
how
it
are tags handled? Are tag.
tags are similar here.
Yeah, that I know for the set command they
Oh,
are
oh.
similar, but how would you handle them in the unset command?
Let's see what it does. So node set. Oh yeah, this is. Oh wait, no, this isn't set. Yeah, this needs to be. Right now it's tag add. That's inelegant. Okay, we need to fix tags also.
No, no, the tag add comes from, I don't know where it really comes from. I don't know why it's there, because it's created by this recursive create flags, I think, at
Yeah.
given point. It would be nicer really to
Oh,
have it here as a, that you could then, you just say uh, ww control node unset minus minus tag, and then you could give it a list of the keys, and then it will just remove dead keys. Because if a
Yeah.
key is not a doesn't have a value, it's not there anymore.
I know this is crazy, but long term, it's something that's I've thought about, but eliminating all of these and having the option to list all the possible values and just have a command where I would just put in option by option for anything I want to set or unset. Um, and you just tell it what the value. This is what I want. This is what I want it set to, and I can put a whole string of them in. And the reason I'm looking at this is having to do a whole bunch of stuff for Slurm, right? You can spit out, here's all the possible values you can use, and then you have to tell it what you want to set and not, there's no individual line items or, excuse me, no individual arguments for each uh, possible parameter. But it makes it much more scalable in the future if we add stuff. We don't have to come up with command line argument changes.
Yeah. But it puts all of the checking, all the like you have to do that checking somewhere. It
Oh, you
just
still check all the values. You
yeah.
still evaluate that the types are set correctly and every, you just eliminate all of the command line arguments per value. You have them, there's a generic says, I want to
Yeah,
set this value.
you set a slurm option, right? I think is what they call it or
Yeah.
something like that.
But within, you know, within Werewolf, I would do a set, and then there would be some kind of argument which says I want to set this value to this value, and I can just put in whatever's accepted. Of course, I'm saying this, that means that I should be expected to go do it.
I'll just say patches welcome and leave it there.
Yeah.
So I'm taking notes that we need better handling for tags and better handling for um delete I'll say unsetting a whole netdev partition and file system. Is there an FS one? I think there's one there also. Maybe disk, but any of those things that have like a top level map identity, and then you should be able to unset them there. Anything else? Any other thoughts or feedback on this one? Not this one.
Can we
Oh, this one.
move that to 466? It's
Um,
complicated what's going on there, and there are a lot of edge
you know
cases.
what? I think that is a fair question, and if there is no objection, I will accept that.
Does that include deferring this work to the next one?
I would mean deferring. Like I took that to mean defer the whole PR to it. Is that what you had in mind, Christian?
Yeah. Just move it to the 466 so that we can check this a bit more. It's really not an this the thing is that you kind of copied that stuff where we setting that and then deriving the command line arguments from the node structure.
Yeah.
I do not now just we discussed, yeah, how do we handle tags? How do we handle then IPMI tags and the other tags? It's not so that I really see that there's a lot of work inside because I know how complicated this is. But we need more time for that. And
Yeah.
that's some weeks where we have to check that stuff.
I am supportive of deferring this to 466 if there is no objection. Otherwise, I will try and get it done more quickly.
I would not rush this one because it seems to there's a lot of user-facing potential things, dragons in there.
Okay, let's do that. Here it goes. And then to the issue that it is attached to, I will move that as well. And then, oh wait, we don't want 466 anymore. So that, hey, look at that. Look at that progress. So this leads us to this, and I tried to replicate this, and I was uncertain what problem it was trying to solve. So, uh, Tim, what problem is this trying to solve?
Yet again, I'm gonna have problems articulating this because there's so many things in the air. What problem is it trying to solve? You need to do a interface equals something or bind to something, but because I believe I need to double check. By default, DNS mask will only bind to the local host, so it will not serve out to the network. So you have to tell it explicitly to do that.
So what I saw when I ran it was that the configuration that we are putting in there right now bound to the listen address. And I was similarly because um, I thought maybe the issue was the conflict with systemd resolve D, but that appears to only happen in an IPv6 environment where we're saying listen star or interface star. Um, and I think if we removed that, then it would be fine. But with the configuration we have right now, I see the local host, but I also saw the listen address open.
Is that based off of main?
Uh, it is based off main, yes.
Because I snuck that into the IPv6 patch. It does bind to either it's not interface equals, it's listen address, and it picks off the address. So go to the host profile and look
Yeah,
into
yeah. So
etc dnsmask.d.
are you saying that you think this is just already fixed and
Yes, except for I believe IPv6 on Debian. I think Debian was the issue, was the culprit for it. Or it might have been just my skittishness not to bind a star in general.
so oh, not here. Here. So yeah, there's two things. So if we're I guess it's not either or. If we have an IPv6 or IPv4 address, it just listens on that. This appears to be sufficient to actually get it to listen on that address.
Yes.
If we're IPv6, it is saying, in addition to listen address, it's saying interface star. I don't have an IPv6 environment right now, so I can't test this in terms of a conflict with systemd network D, for example. I don't know if that would have a problem, but
And you can test it. I believe it's the IPv4 part of it that has the issue, and it's not on enterprise Linux systems. I believe it might be just Debian.
okay.
So, and also the star is required when you're doing router announcements in IPv6, which may not be done in a more production environment because your router might be an external router, not the login node, or sorry, the head node.
Right, not the node itself.
Yes. So because it's experimental, I think it's safe just to say the star, and then folks will complain, and we can figure out actually what's happening in the production environment and go from there.
So is it your perspective then that we are good to close this out and say that it is already fixed in main?
Yes, because the listen address I believe, is sufficient to listen to DNS mask and is the safe way to do it because we're not binding on star. So it is both safe and sufficient to solve the DNS issue, which does not exist on Enterprise Linux 10, Rocky 10 to be specific. I just tested it now.
Okay.
But it is required to get it to work out of the box. Otherwise, the sysadmin would have to add that to bind to the correct interface.
Um, but they could also do that in like etcdnsmask.conf rather than in this file.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And so now it's the star is only in IPv6, which that needs more testing and what an actual IPv6 cluster production environment would look like and how they're doing the routing.
And I would argue that the better solution to this kind of a problem in perpetuity is breaking up the host overlay so that it's more natural to override the host overlay behavior locally for what you want it to do anyway. And then we could do all kinds of things.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And it
Okay.
also needs more, it also needs a little bit more testing. When we hopefully get some progress on Debian, that will tell us some things as well. But I will continue to test it in the next half hour or so to see if Debian was actually the actual issue.
Okay. Hey guys, look at this. So I will plan on working on the release itself, which means like writing up release notes and tagging it and making sure the
Okay,
change log is in a good state. But
thank you.
I will consider this ready for release unless Tim comes to me with a computer that's on fire and says, "Wait, don't launch the missiles." And uh, so from there, I will continue working on the unset thing because I'm actually kind of excited about having that in, but we'll expect that to go into 4.6 and maybe not have that one be overdue by 3 months like this one is.
And in general, we're safe because this is only by default for Enterprise Linux 10, and folks are not yet adopting it. Now that we're at 10.1, I would assume folks are probably starting to seriously think about testing it for their future clusters.
I think I'm going to switch my personal environment to be using DNS mask by default now so that I get more familiarity with it. But yeah, it is the minority case for now, still for sure.
One nice thing, it does serve out the DNS for Etsy host. So you do now have DNS entries uh, for the domain in addition to the host's overlay being pushed out. So I don't know if we want to think about using that more fully in the future in a clustering environment. Some folks like Etsy hosts, some folks don't.
Yeah. That's cool. Do you have to restart DNS mask when you update Etsy hosts to get that to respect it, or does it just serve out whatever's there?
I haven't looked that far.
Okay.
I went, ooh, that works.
You
Nice.
do.
You do have to restart it.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
not sure if there's like a different like sig hump handler that'll
Yeah.
reread the config, but you restarting will definitely do it,
Okay.
and it doesn't seem to pick it up otherwise.
Okay. Cool.
One thing we may consider for the host overlay and potentially other overlays is some sort of trigger when things triggering updates or something like that when something changes. It's not a well-formed thought, but I think that's one thing missing. I know you can put a lot of things in systemd overlays, but I think the ability to trigger actions might be helpful in
You
the
don't mean
future.
the host overlay, you just mean in general, like triggers out in the node.
In the node, but also this would be the case in the host over. You'd use it in the host overlay as well. As
Yeah.
if this updates, then you have a trigger which restarts the DNS
Yeah.
mask for you.
Okay. Yep.
And maybe
Okay.
there's an elegant way of doing it to systemd. That's just I had it. I was triggered by having that thought reoccurring when I've been doing my work.
Okay. Any objection to switching over to node images and merging some node image PRs? All right, so we'll start with Tim's. So, well, let's just look at. Oh, it's going to be a lot because it's going to be all kinds of like all over the place. But the the most important thing that I see is all of them are still building. But this is removing DH client, and this is okay because it has network manager. Is that the idea?
DH client historically had used, sorry, network manager had historically used DH client, but it no longer does. It has its own built-in one.
Is this removing it? Yeah, just for EL9 and EL10, not presumably EL8 is still requires DH client or something like that.
I may have removed it. No, it's update to. So the big thing
Oh,
is
I
that I
see.
updated
You're
the
adding.
images.
Yeah.
The current image is been updated.
Yes. So this is also removing it from 8. Is it also okay for like I'm going to expect that you tested these since you
Yeah,
tend
but
to
then
do
you're
that.
making me wonder now, is there any other overlays that use DH client?
I don't think so.
Does D
Oh, yeah, there's the if config ones, but I don't think we should depend on that. People don't necessarily need to like we're still installing Network Manager, and then if you use ifconfig, it's gonna pick those up with Network Manager. It's not using DH client, so I think that should still be fine. Um, I don't know.
So
We
which
don't have
bring
very good testing harness for this.
Yeah, I'm working on that. We also don't have a good way of protecting our folks. When we make a change to the images, it goes out all the time. It should go through testing, QA testing on the sites, but every version and everything uses these, immediately. As soon as we flip this theoretically, clusters could update to the latest version of Enterprise Linux, right? If
Well,
they're
existing clusters won't pull the new image. This only happens when you import a new image into Werewolf. I
Yes,
guess
that is
if
true.
so, okay, if they are building images as we tell them to, if they're building images as part of some kind of CI/CD pipeline and they're
Yeah.
basing it on these, then yes, this would affect them immediately.
It just makes me more nervous on updating these as opposed to working on the next release because we don't have releases
Yeah.
for the entire suite of node images.
I am happy to hear a proposal for how we should do that. I have not had a solution to this problem myself because we have versions for the operating systems themselves and then versioning them. Like in the past, these were in the Werewolf, uh, like the same repository. But that then we weren't actually building them anywhere, and where they were getting built, they were sometimes getting built and pushed into Docker, but then there was no versioning in the image version number, so they were it wasn't quite done. I don't know how else to do it.
My only thought would be is to append the current version of Werewolf onto it so they get paired. So it would be, if it was, we would release them at the same time. So we would release a 464 now, and then when we got 465, we'd release a bunch of tags with 465 on it.
Would you advocate for moving the definition files back into the Werewolf repository then to release them as a single version thing?
I think it's an artificial problem, and I'd like other people to chime in on it. I think it just makes me nervous, and maybe we should communicate it. And sysadmin should be a little bit more cautious in terms of updating their node images by randomly pulling things. So, what do others think? We'll wait till somebody goes boom and figure it out from that.
Yeah.
Get them the solution. I did test it across all our, as you can see, quite a few architectures and containers. So.
I will say when I had a conversation kind of about this, I think it wasn't even at the last SC, I think it was at SC24. There was a part of me that wanted to be doing more integration testing, and then I realized anything that I would do would just be replicating what OpenHPC is already doing. So why not just trust that? So if you say these are good, like I'm of a mind to merge them and be okay with it.
I don't know if I tested them with OpenHPC.
Okay. But I just mean in terms of like you're the one doing the integration testing, so I trust it. But
Um, I guess I'm thinking to when you mentioned the CI/CD and things like that, the proper way probably would be if somebody's doing CI/CD pipeline would be to clone the repo, the image repo, and actually build the containers locally and use those as opposed to use the GitHub built one. I think that would be the recommended workflow in my opinion.
yeah, or even if they're not cloning them, if they just take one of these as an example and use them as a base for what they're building.
Yeah.
But um, any objections to me merging this now? I have to do this here. All right. Hearing no objection. The next one that has one of our names on it, so this, doesn't really matter. But I guess Tim, you've already approved this, so it probably just needs rebasing now because of what we just did. But this is renaming the container exit to image exit, both of which are supported by Werewolf, but just because we're not calling them containers anymore. Um, but if there is no objection, I will rebase this later today and then merge it as well. Um, I'm not familiar with this one. Tim, it looks like you've looked at it at least a little bit. What do you have anything to say about this?
I need to look at it
Okay.
again. What is this? 89?
Yeah. And then that leaves the last one as Ubuntu 2404. Um,
I think there was an open conversation or an unresolved conversation.
yeah, I haven't tested this certainly. And I don't know if Ian, here, I'm just going to put a question to Ian here. Is this the right one? Yeah.
Well, I will say I can give it a test, hopefully
Oh, you are
sometime this.
here.
I am here.
Sorry about that.
No worries. But that's okay. It gives me a reminder, so I'll hopefully try and test it this week.
Ian, could you test the if binding to interface equals
Hmm.
star causes issues in Debian or
Sure.
in Ubuntu?
Yeah, I can look at both.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm recalling the for UBI 89, they brought in a lot of tooling associated with it. It wasn't a container file,
Yeah.
it was a Python file. So I really think it should be, I didn't look at it closer, but it just seemed like the wrong approach to getting it in.
Okay. Well, feel free to close it if you become convinced of that. I think that that was even part of the conversation already.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll close that one and ask him to submit it as a.
Anything else that we should discuss today? Or should I just go and get this release out? Can't hear you, Chris.
Ship it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your participation and being here and being a part of Werewolf. We'll look forward to getting this release out finally and hopefully the next one in less time. Our next meeting is the 21st, and
Um,
I'll oh, hmm?
one last, I
Yeah.
added the issue today about the comment. I don't know if you really get it. The thing is, if you, or a bug. So if a node doesn't have a comment, which not all nodes have,
Yes.
and the profile has a comment, the comment of the profile goes to the node, even if it's just a comment like this is some special profile holding only this and that.
Yes. I agree with you, And yeah, that I have noticed that before and wanted what you are saying should be the case to be the
Yeah.
case myself before.
Okay.
So thank you very
Yeah.
much for submitting it.
We could try to. I just don't know if it's better to just your opinion. What you think implemented in the merging of profile nodes, doing a special case there,
No, I don't
or
like
do
special cases.
yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah,
Or
but honestly, because if I put a comment in on a profile, I'm always assuming that that comment is actually being the comment isn't about the profile. The comment is what ends up at the end object.
So that's
It's just
different than what Christian is saying here. Christian is saying that the comment should be for the profile, and if you want to comment on a node, then it should be specified on the node.
yeah, right. And
oh yeah.
the,
See, I've
the,
never
the
viewed it
question
that
is
way.
here how we solve that, and there are kind of two possibilities. We could do it in the merge node, in the merging of the nodes and comment no, from the profiles to the nodes, or we could say, okay, in the data structure, no, so the node holds the profile in the data structure. So what we could have is then more an abstract profile, which does not include the comment. And then us would that no, then the no that yeah, we have to
Yeah,
do
I
the
think you'd have the
merging.
same problem. I think uh accepting it in the merge logic should be relatively straightforward, but I
Yeah,
haven't tried it yet.
yeah.
But
It's
And I just thought we could have it, but that's not how our merging works. In C++, you would say, okay, you would have an abstract profile which doesn't have a comment, and then this inherits the profile, and the node inherits this, and the profile inherits this. And then they define always their own profile, but we do it in another way. In Go, we don't have that
yeah,
abstract thing.
yeah. Because I'll be honest, the way I've always viewed it, if I create a profile, NVIDIA node, I'll put a comment, for NVIDIA nodes, right? I don't care if that ends up in the
Yeah,
node because
that's
that's what it's supposed to be. Um,
so the
the idea is I'm
unloveliness that
looking
I
at a
have
profile.
experienced in the past. So if we
Mhm.
look at C Werewolf nodes, I think that this is this default profile. So like by default, we ship a profile that says this profile is automatically included for each node. And then when you look at the node,
Yeah, and that I agree. And
then
the
you get a
problem
comment that
is
says this profile is automatically included for each node, uh, which is a little bit unusual.
yeah, yeah. And the only way I would split it up is comment is actually create a new uh LDAP tag called profile comment. And sure, that rolls down, but everybody knows that's the comment about the profile.
So
But
Christian, for
the whole
your
purpose of profiles was to basically pull everything. I want to have a comment on every single node, right? I put comment in the profile and it rolls down all my nodes. That was the whole point of the profile. And you're right, the bigger issue is we may not be putting the correct info in there. Or when we say this, the long string of text um, is comment should just be, default profile. And then when I look at the node, the comment is default profile, and I go, oh, that node's using the default profile.
Yeah, but then it gets more confused because you can inherit from multiple profiles. And
Yeah.
so one of them wins, but that doesn't necessarily say like what values in other fields that the profile is getting.
Yeah.
You're saying that that's the whole point of profiles, but it's still inheriting all the other values from profiles. The question is just whether
Yeah.
the comment itself should be inherited in the same way.
Yeah. I agree. The only one I would ever say that, well, it probably is the only one I would ever merge together are tags.
Well, we also do overlays. But anything that's a list gets merged together, and then kind of the maps do as well. But all right, anything else? All right, thanks all. we'll see you again soon.